I see a lot of confusion and misinformation on the internet about how mobile wallets work, whether they have privacy or security advantages, and whether you're giving any special insight into your transactions to the companies behind your phone's operating system. So today I wanted to explain exactly how Apple Wallet and Google Pay work to hopefully clear up some of this confusion. There's one common misconception about both of these platforms that I want to address right off the bat, and that is the idea that mobile wallets provide a privacy advantage by using a different card number for every purchase you make. This simply isn't true. Both of these services will use a different card number than your physical card for making purchases, but that card number is assigned on a per device basis, meaning that using your digital wallet across multiple merchants can still easily be tracked. That being said, Google Pay has added the option to use a virtual card number on a per merchant basis, but it only works with a small number of eligible card providers, and even with those providers, some of them only change the CVC code of your card for each merchant instead of changing the entire card number, providing you a little extra security, but not providing privacy protection when you make purchases across different merchants. So you really can't rely on Google Pay to provide the same level of privacy protection that a standalone virtual card service like privacy.com might provide. Now, let's dive into how these platforms actually work, starting with Apple Wallet. When you add a card to your iPhone interfaces directly with your bank to receive a device account number that is stored in the secure enclave locally on your device. When you make a purchase, that device account number can be used at the payment terminal exactly like a regular tap-to-pay credit card would be used. The important thing to note here is that nowhere in this process does Apple Wallet communicate with Apple's servers to obtain transaction information or approval in any way. This actually allows Apple Wallet to work completely offline and without an Apple ID. You can test this for yourself next time you make an Apple Wallet transaction by enabling airplane mode before making a purchase. Google Pay, on the other hand, functions very differently than Apple Wallet. When you add a card on your Android phone, that card information is always stored on Google's servers. In a way, this makes sense because Android has to run on such a wide variety of hardware, they can't rely on using a secure enclave to store that information in the same way that Apple does. What this means, however, is that every time you make a payment, your phone does interface with Google servers in order to obtain a payment token that is then used at the payment terminal to make a purchase. So, every time you use Google Pay, Google is always operating as a middleman, receiving information about the payments that you're making using the platform. So, let's think about all of this from a privacy and a security standpoint. Both of these options are likely more secure than using a physical card because they protect your payment information from being released or used unless you're verifying the transaction via biometrics on your phone, which is a huge win over physical cards to be sure. However, Google Pay has the massive privacy downside of storing your card data with Google and interfacing with Google for every payment you make. On the other hand, Apple Wallet provides essentially identical privacy protections to using your physical card. Card transactions certainly aren't the most private way to make a transaction by any means, but you're also not really giving up anything when you choose to use Apple Wallet. So typically I recommend it universally when you have the option between using Apple Wallet and using a physical card. In any case, that's just a couple misconceptions that I wanted to clear up. I hope it made sense to you. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and check out some of my other videos if you want to learn more about privacy, security, and technology.